It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Lisa Gleason. In the fall of 2020, Dr. Gleason joined the New Jersey Department of Education as the Assistant Commissioner of the Office of Academics and Performance, where she is responsible for academic assessment, performance, curricular and instructional issues related to the delivery of education for the 1.4 million students in our New Jersey public schools. Dr. Gleason's background includes the development of the Monmouth County Curriculum Consortium, a teaching career spanning all grade bands from K to 12, experience in both urban and suburban districts, and an administrative experience as a principal and a director of curriculum. Dr. Gleason completed her master's degree in school administration and leadership at Georgian Court University, where she is currently an adjunct professor. Dr. Gleason earned her doctorate in education from St. Peter's University. As you will see, she is an educational leader who is passionate about the learning process and dedicated to our students. It is my pleasure to present Dr. Lisa Gleason.
Good morning, everyone. Is it still morning, afternoon? We're close, right? Arlene, thank you for that introduction, and thank you to all of my friends and the team at NJPSA. And I'm so happy to see so many of our friendly faces and colleagues from the districts, and just really happy to be here. I absolutely voted D for the foodie question. And yes, while I miss the face-to-face interaction of being at NJPSA and FEA, like the rest of you, let's be honest, the food was just phenomenal. And we all look forward to those breakfast lunches and those little soda bottles. Years ago, we used to give before I gave up soda. So thank you to everybody for being here. And it's certainly an interesting time to come into the department. It's either the best of times or worst of times, but I'm excited to be part of an incredibly talented team and representing just an incredibly talented team of educators across the state of New Jersey who are thinking innovatively and creatively and with great perseverance about the ways that we can begin to continue to recover, to think about re-envisioning and re-engaging with our students, with their families, our school communities, and educators across the state, and then reimagine. As we know, the crisis is amongst us, has been, we're in the midst of it, and yet there's opportunity all around. And we're looking at ways that we can uncover these moments of opportunity to improve and enhance education as we once knew it. And I think we're all in agreement that we are never going back to what we knew as the norm or normal. And we are moving forward. And I am excited about those opportunities that we'll uncover together. Today, I have the privilege of sharing with you the Department of Education, some of the key aspects of our vision as we continue to walk together with our educational leaders and educators across the state of New Jersey through and down the road forward. If I could have the next slide, please. So we know that the research is showing us that learning gaps resulting from COVID-19 are resulting in learning deficits of at least 30% in reading, and up to 50% in math. We've seen the NWEA and Credo studies. We also know that the learning gaps have existed prior to the pandemic, and that those gaps will grow exponentially without well-defined plans and execution of targeted interventions. We also know that acceleration rather than remediation will be the key driver to help close those gaps and provide students with grade level content and instruction. To that end, we must be prepared with high quality instructional plans, curricular resources, and assessment systems, especially formative assessment, that drive our work. And let's be clear, we know that we value first and foremost the mental health and wellness of our educators, our students, and their families. On February 19th, Governor Murphy announced lost my slide there. Governor Murphy announced a plan for paving the road forward with a significant investment that builds districts' capacity to identify and address both the academic and mental health impacts of the COVID-19 crisis on our educators, students, and their families. On March 15th, applications will now be made available to access federal ESSER II funding in excess of $1.2 billion that districts may use in a variety of flexible ways to support your operations, instruction, and learning impacted by COVID-19 and to continue safely reopening our schools. Additionally, the department has used state set-aside funds to establish 2 additional non-competitive grants, which I'll share in more specificity with you shortly. And the DOE will also use ESSER II state set-aside funds to provide assistance to non-Title I LEAs, county special services school districts, education service commissions, jointure commissions, the Division of Children and Families, the Department of Corrections, Juvenile Justice Commission, and the Juvenile Detention Centers. The Learning Acceleration Grant is a non-competitive formula grant aligned with LEA's Title I funding. All districts will be guaranteed at least $25,000, including non-Title I districts. The purpose of this grant is to provide learning acceleration opportunities and to support research-based academic enrichment, such as summer learning academies, school year learning acceleration academies and extended day programs, and high dosage one-on-one tutoring. The way the learning acceleration grant is structured is that 75% of that allocation will be focused on STEM learning acceleration, and the other 25% of that allocation should be used to focus on learning acceleration in literacy in the arts. In all cases, interventions, tutoring, enrichment, or any out-of-school learning opportunities must include accommodations and modifications necessary for the participation of students with disabilities up through age 21, our English language learners, economically disadvantaged, and homeless and migrant students. The other piece of the Learning Acceleration Grant, the other 25%, is meant to be dedicated to supporting the learning ecosystem. And what we mean by the broader learning ecosystem is evidence-based strategies to cultivate a growth mindset in students based upon the work of Carol Dweck and others. Professional learning for educators in the use of universal screening assessments, ways to effectively use formative assessments to focus on misconceptions, especially in the virtual environment. And then also how to use extended day instructional time to effectively scaffold students' learning. Looking at education and training programs as well for parents and caregivers, specifically focused on our multi-tiered system of supports. The second grant that the department has structured from state set-aside funds is the mental health grant. The mental health grant will provide districts with an additional funding source using enrollment rather than Title I formula as the formula for allocations. For the mental health grant, districts will be guaranteed a minimum of $45,000. And the grant is meant to be used to implement a multi-tiered system of mental health supports for students and educators that is self-sustaining beyond the grant period, as well as professional development for educators. So I know that this is truly the topic that is first and foremost in our minds currently, and that's the idea of assessment and what is happening around assessment. So the next couple of slides I'd like to share with you what's happening. COVID-19, as we know, has caused highly unusual statewide assessment circumstances. Last year, we were offered unilaterally a waiver by the US Ed for a suspension of statewide assessments as well as through executive order. This spring's a little bit different. On February 19th, the department made available for public comment a draft request to waive federal requirements for administering our full suite of statewide assessments, including NJPSA, Access, and DLM, as well as all of the related accountability rules. As part of that waiver and to fill data gaps that we knew would be absent without state assessment and to ensure that our students are making meaningful growth toward grade level standards, the department also included a provision for a local data collection using districts' assessments both interim, benchmark, or a collection of other formative assessment measures that would provide a snapshot of student learning. And we've asked districts to norm that data, if you will, around the percentage of students who are performing below grade level, on grade level, and above grade level, and then to disaggregate that data further by student population. Also included in that waiver was the department's intentions to pilot a kindergarten readiness assessment in fall of 2021, as well as potentially administering or providing for districts a fall Start Strong assessment that would provide districts and educators immediate student performance data around a subset of priority skills from the prior grade level. A very short 3 days after the department released the waiver for public comment, the USED provided states guidance on administering federal assessments and accountability requirements in the 2020-21 school year. And while they have not explicitly offered a waiver for suspension of spring statewide assessments, they are currently offering flexibilities for truncating the assessment, offering a summer 2021 testing window, and offering a fall 2020-21 testing window. The USED did, in the language of that guidance, provide that they would be working with states that might need additional flexibilities. And to that point, the department is continuing to work with CCSSO and the USED on trying to understand better what those additional flexibilities might be, and to ensure that our waiver is well defined and puts us in a position to do what we know is best for students and educators at this time, while also knowing that we have to collect information around how students are doing in the midst of the pandemic, but through an alternate data collection and a larger assessment vision that we believe would provide more valuable data than the state assessment data in its current setting. The road forward as we begin to formulate this plan further and engage stakeholders further, and I'm sure you've heard Commissioner Alan McMillan talk about, the road forward is not a single document, but will be an ongoing compendium and organic work that will enhance collaboration among districts and continue to look at where we are and continue to pause at times and see what we still need to do and what new possible threats or opportunities are still on the horizon that we can continue to address and incorporate into the plan. Recently, the department collected from chief school administrators information on achievements that our LEAs have made during the pandemic on a variety of topics, including learning gaps, attendance, insecurities, including food insecurities, healthcare and attendance, as well as operations. And to further enhance collaboration among our districts and schools, these self-reported achievements have now been collected and reported and are highlighted in the database that is now a clearinghouse on our website. And I really encourage you all, if you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at this clearinghouse. We're incredibly proud of the work that's been done in spite of these extraordinarily challenging circumstances. We have districts that are really forging forward with innovative practice and really breaking and cracking the code on engaging students and engaging families. So I encourage you to access that clearinghouse and to share in the success of our districts. As I said, we know that acceleration is the driver that will begin to help close those gaps, both gaps that were caused by COVID-19, as well as the gaps that existed prior to the pandemic. And in order to support accelerated instruction and learning, we know that we have to focus on grade level content. We have to emphasize the focus standards while not removing instruction from the comprehensive breadth of standards that we have. But we have to prioritize the most critical prerequisite skills and knowledge for each subject area and grade level, and support educators in really understanding what does it mean when we say, how do we evaluate what was unfinished learning And how do we provide acceleration? What does that mean? What does it look like? How do we plan an approach to diagnose students' unfinished learning in those prerequisite skills? And then how do we look at our curriculum and how do we adapt the scope and sequence and the pacing for each subject area and the grade level to accommodate what teachers might need to provide that accelerated support? And then also looking at what are the systems that we have in place to monitor students' progress on a consistent, ongoing basis on grade appropriate assignments, and how do we adjust those supports in a meaningful way for teachers and leaders based on student results? So what I want everyone to know is that the department is highly focused, particularly the Division of Academics and Performance, in ensuring that we will provide deliverables to districts that will do exactly this, to support accelerated instruction and learning, to provide professional learning, to provide toolkits that offer aligned lessons, videos of best practice in accelerated instruction, as well as other evidence-based strategies, web resources and other user-friendly resources that teachers can use in the here and now. One of those resources that we're very excited about are the prerequisite skill and focus standards that we released. We started the first release back in September, and we did the final release of units 3 and 4 back in February. And these prerequisite skills and focus standards, teachers can access these by grade level. They can access the skills and focus standards by units, or they can look at them in a complete ongoing list by strand or domain. And not only does this provide some real specific framework and lens for teachers to look through when they say, what are the focus skills or power standards at the grade level I teach? And what are the prerequisite skills and concepts that were necessary for students to access content at my grade level? So there's a direct linkage for what we consider the priority or a subset of priority skills that we know teachers and educators need to focus a great deal of time on in order to accelerate instruction. And so again, I encourage you to share with your educators the resource that's now available on the website. And as I said, we will be continuing to provide what we believe will be relevant deliverables to the field so that we can support our educators in the good work that they are doing. And I'd love to take questions if there are some questions at this time. Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Gleason, it's Pat Wright. How are you, Lisa?
Hi, Pat. Great to see you. Thanks for having me today.
All right. You're well, thanks for being here. We really appreciate that. And we appreciate the fact that we are continue to collaborate with the department to build out these resources around the Connected Action Roadmap, the units that were developed, and we will continue to collaborate with you and look forward to that, working on some of the tools that that the department intends to provide. So we do have quite a few questions for you. One of them, should districts continue planning for NJPSA access and DLM testing this spring? Because there are questions following that as to when the informational sections for administration and all that would be provided. So that seems to be a burning question.
Absolutely, and understandably so. As you know, we're in a really unusual situation here. While we prepared our waiver, we've been through public comment through March 5th. We were hopeful that there would be some movement from the US Ed, even possibly prior to the submission of our waiver. We've continued to work with US Ed, CCSSO, and we'll be submitting that waiver. And US Ed is aware that we are submitting the waiver. But at the same time, we have no guarantee that a waiver will be approved. And so we are simultaneously, while preparing and finalizing the language of that waiver, we are simultaneously preparing for what will be either a spring administration or potentially one of the flexibilities through summer or fall. We know that there are a host of challenges in any one of those scenarios, any one of those three scenarios. But what I would say is that while I don't have a definitive answer for you for today, that I want districts to be aware that that is the unique situation that we are in, that we are hopeful that our waiver will be heard and will be honored, but we must simultaneously be prepared. And we are doing that on our end in the event that that means a spring administration. We will ensure that we have all of the training information out to districts as quickly as possible. And I anticipate that that information will be turned around as quickly as possible, given the very short runway that we have left in order to make that decision for spring.
Okay. Another question. I'm going to let, I see a question here from Anthony Scotto. Anthony, do you want to ask your own question if you want to unmute?
Yes, good morning, Lisa, and welcome.
Thanks, Anthony. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Lisa, we received a broadcast from you on the 25th of February about the spring assessment data collection. And I know in my district, and as I've spoken with leaders across the state, what we are most concerned about is the science. I think we were sort of caught off guard by that broadcast memo. We have tried to understand what the rationale may be. Either A, perhaps our state continues to advocate for no state testing, and this could serve, but also knowing that state testing may not be canceled, and hopeful that perhaps this data could serve for accountability measures if districts still have to give state testing. So I think we all understand the what. But I think where we are struggling is the window that we are asked to provide you with information, November 16th through February 19th, was before the broadcast was received, and with minimal guidance, particularly in K-12 science. How, why would we do this? The other thing I would ask you to think about or share along the way is, for districts such as mine with 12,000 students, 24 schools, over 50% of our families on total remote, we have to prioritize at the local level. And I know you know that as a former local leader. What advice do you have regarding this collection, particularly in science?
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for articulating a question or a set of questions that I've heard from others and I know needs some further answering. So with regard to the why or the what, as you put, I think that most districts understand that we are trying to provide the federal government with what we believe would be an alternate data collection that would serve to capture the K-12 broader set of student learning, not just in the tested grades. And to bolster that waiver, we had to ensure that we really were capturing all the way from K through 12. So you'll see that as part of the federal waiver request. With that said, we've heard from districts that have said we teach, especially at the secondary level, we teach science second block. So we do not even have science data, and naturally so, just as a function of our schedule. And we've heard from districts that, as we know, science and social studies often do not get, especially at the elementary level, the time that other subjects areas may get in some cases. And districts have been very frank with us about what they believe is a lack of really authentic data or valuable data. So we're very sensitive to that and want to provide flexibilities around that. And so when you open up that template, which is an Excel spreadsheet, and you see how you enter in that data, if a district truly does not believe that they have sufficient data around science at a particular grade level, we only want what you believe is authentic data. And so we've had districts tell us that they don't in good faith believe they could supply that data. And we're honoring what we know is what you have. So I ask for all of you to be aware that we're flexible with that, but we do want to honor what we know districts have as formative assessment measures. And we hope that at any given time, even in the pandemic, that there are some assessment measures in place, even if they aren't a formal, structured, vendor-created, regular assessment system. And within that initial guidance, we tried to provide language that we hoped would communicate a message of flexibility around using that. But we are, as I said, also honoring the fact that some districts have unique circumstances in which that data is absent, and we're understanding of that. And let me just speak to the final piece around the data capture window, that it was prior to the release of the broadcast. And that wasn't an oversight. Well, what we had thought about in conversations was that we did not want to create a further burden for districts. And as you say, Anthony, I come so closely from district. I hope to never take my district hat off, like I never take my teacher hat off. And so I'm acutely aware of the many challenges that leaders are facing in district. And so what we did not want to do was set up a situation where now districts had to think about, what can I do in terms of finding time to administer more assessments, but rather to use assessment data that already was in place. Even, as I said, even if it was not a structured, formal benchmarking system that I know some districts may have and others don't. So it was not intended in any way to be an additional burden or to be a lapse in asking for something after a deadline. So again, the message is one of flexibility, understanding around the capacity challenges that are in district, and please feel free to communicate with the department and specifically to me if you have those unique challenges that you'd like for us to be aware of.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome, Anthony. Good seeing you.
Thanks, Lisa. And we have another question. Kevin Babatek, do you want to talk a little bit about, I know as testing coordinator, you have a few questions here.
Thank you. I also work with Anthony in the Hamilton Township School District. So, you know, pushing back the date to April 5th, that's certainly helpful. It sort of gives us enough time, but that also moves the access testing later on, and that creates a significant impact for our ESL teachers, which could mean that they're testing students not only in access, but then right after in the NJPSA. So we don't have any communication whatsoever yet. We are planning at the district level as if assessments are going to occur, and it would just be great if we could have something, especially on the remote piece, because that was indicated in the memo that we would have to be assessing students remotely, and that's causing a significant amount of anxiety for our administrators right now. And thanks for coming on and addressing the group. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Kevin. And thanks for all the work that you do as the, I don't know if you're a test coordinator or tech coordinator, but in either role, in a district, especially like Hamilton, with so many students, I can only imagine the pressure as you await this information. Again, rest assured, all of those documents are prepared in terms of the technical advisory and documents for remote administration, which is new. And we hope to have that information to you very shortly. One of the areas that we are looking around the flexibility is the extended window that WIDA has announced for access through September 17th as a possible option for districts. So we may have an opportunity to extend that window through the fall, which would be a little bit of a relief on some of the pressure points around access testing, especially because that testing can only be done on site.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
And thanks, Lisa. I'm going to ask, Jackie Burke has an interesting question, and I think this reflects also the urgency around guidance for the fall and guidance for the summer and fall in terms of opening our schools more. And so, Jackie, you want to ask your question?
Sure. A lot of our school districts, I represent the county vocational school districts, are really looking for guidance as to whether they're going to have to offer a remote option for the fall. I think testing is one of the most concerns about that, because having to do in-school testing, if you have to offer a remote option to parents, makes it very difficult. And the superintendents and the principals have to make these decisions sooner rather than later as they prepare to reopen. So my question is there a decision yet on whether there's going to be a requirement to offer remote learning to families in the fall? And if you are going to leave that up to the local districts to make an individual decision?
Thank you, Jackie, for your question. And I know that's a question that is, prevalent in everyone's mind. We do not currently have an answer about any changes yet. And as you know, we're still operating under that EO that still allows for remote instruction. So I do not have any information about any changes to that yet, although you can expect guidance around that exact question as we move forward. And I saw something coming up in the chat where, districts are asking for guidance as soon as possible and not waiting till August. And I know, again, as I was in district in August last year and racing to get my district plan ready before school's reopening, I know what that pressure felt like. And so we're, again, working hard to try to allow as much room as possible and space for you to make the decisions that you need to make in district with as much time as possible.
Okay. And Heather?
Yeah, it's less of a question and just more of a comment. I have struggled over with this, and first, thank you so much for all the support that we get from the department. But when guidance does come out, and there's so much flexibility, and we appreciate the flexibility because schools are very different. Sometimes I think it has the opposite effect, and in a community really allows for a lot of competition and comparison between districts. So any non-negotiable items, especially around health and safety, I think would be so greatly appreciated, because as confident as I think most of us are in making academic decisions for our districts, health and safety is not in our wheelhouse. And I just think that some of those non-negotiables really give us the support that we need when discussing with our communities about what we are capable of doing as a district and what we're not. So just a comment.
Thank you, Heather.
For everything.
I think, Lisa, we're here, we see some other, and I know this isn't the purview of your particular office. And so just so everybody knows, we have been discussing these things with the commissioner at lead meetings, also in terms of the need for this guidance sooner. I think we all recognize, that being one of the pitfalls in the past is that the guidance is behind the decision-making that needs to occur at the district level at times. And it's all understandable due to this pandemic we've never experienced before, but maybe we can assure that that doesn't happen again for our summer and fall openings of school, because we are still operating under the same health guidance that we were, despite the fact that CDC has come out with new health guidance. And I know, Lisa, that's not your charge, so you're just hearing the message.
That's correct. And Pat, what I would say is, because I understand deeply the concerns at the district level. And what I would say is, if you could please send to me any comments that are in the chat so I can bring them back to Commissioner and the team, so that all of those questions are honored, even though I do not have the ability to answer some of them, probably many of them, that are outside of academics and performance, but they're important questions and I would like to bring them back. So Pat, perhaps if you could send those to me after, I would be happy to bring them back.
Absolutely, and we appreciate that.
Thank
very,
you.
very much. And just one last clarifying question for someone about, you mentioned some applications available March 15th. They want to know, is that also the same for the Learning Accelerated Grant and the mental health grants?
Yes, it is. All the applications will open up, including your LEA set aside ESSER2 funds. And within that same application in EWIG, you'll also see the drop down for the Learning Acceleration Grant, as well as the mental health grant.
Okay.
We tried to make them as streamlined as possible. When I met with the grants team, again, with my district hat on, I said, those of you that are grant writers, these become, exhaustive and exhausting. And we tried to make them as streamlined as possible, knowing that you've got, ESSA applications coming down the pike. And we would want to make sure that you have flexibility. Heather, I know you don't like that word, but it's a good place for flexibility with your funds. This is a good place for flexibility. So I hope that you'll find that the application will be streamlined. So, and I'm teasing you, Heather. I appreciated your answer.
Lisa, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. I know this is one of many visits you'll be paying to our meetings at NJPSA, because you've been a great collaborative partner so far, and we really appreciate that. So thanks again for being here.
It's been my pleasure, Pat. And to all of you out there, thank you for being here today. And thank you again for the extraordinary work that you're doing. You're all my heroes. And if there's anything additional that we can continue to do to support, please know that we are here in service to you and to support our district. So thank you. Have a great day, everybody, and a great weekend.